This is Greg Canty here, and welcome to the Win Happy podcast. Stay tuned for interesting chats with interesting people about winning their lives and being happy at the same time. This show has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. Thanks for listening. I think this podcast with singer-songwriter Jen Hajj is the perfect way to sign off on the very strange year which is 2021. Jen is based in the small town of Idlewild, which is nestled in the hills of California. In true Win Happy tradition, Jen has taken a while to follow her passion, and her path has included choir singing, zookeeping, looking after birds of prey, and a life-changing songwriting retreat in Ireland. Talking of the pandemic, Jen says there are a lot of paths to happiness. Before we hear from Jen and her fantastic music, I'd like to sincerely thank all of my many guests this year, and I'd also like to thank you, the listener, and I hope you tune in again next year. Until then, Happy New Year. Jen Hajj, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great.
A big, huge welcome to the Win Happy podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And I'm totally jealous, by the way.
Why?
Because we're in the middle of our miserable winter season, and you're in sunny California.
Well, it's not sunny today, but yes, it's the weather here is when it's not nice, it's pleasant. So
yeah, well, it's not so pleasant at this time of the year, I can tell you that. But yeah, it's really good to talk to you. And of course, it's the nighttime here, and it's quite early in the day over there. We've got a big time difference. So thanks for jumping on. I was smiling there because I was going to save something for the start of the conversation. And for the life of me, that's totally and utterly gone out of my head.
Oh, no.
Was I working too hard today, Jen? Is that what it was, do you think?
Probably,
yeah.
Yes.
Actually, I know exactly what it was. Okay. So before we started recording, you were telling me how different the people can be in the different locations over there. So I was asking you where you were from originally, which is a question I like to ask everyone anyway. So who the hell is Jen Hajj, and where did you come from?
Well, I was born in Massachusetts, sort of the Boston area. But my parents were kind of early in their careers, and my dad had just gotten his master's degree, and they were in that area for that reason. And then it was time to find good work. My dad got transferred to Arizona, and so when I was 3 years old, we whisked off to Tempe, Arizona, and lived in the desert for like a decade. So the people back east are very different from the people out west in the U.S. It's like back east they're very intense. They're very, I think they're very direct. And out here out west we're just kind of laid back. We observe more, talk less, and it's just a whole different way of being. So,
yeah,
and it's a much better way of being for me. I don't know what kind of person I would have turned out to be if I had stayed back east. But I like who I am.
The reason I was kind of smiling when you started having that conversation with me about how you might be more laid back in a different location. I'm from Cork in the south of Ireland, and it's a really nice place. It's a nice city. It's not too big. It's not too small. On the other hand, then you go to Dublin, the capital, and there's a bit more hustle and bustle. You can see there's a bit more tension about living there. Like, we have offices in both locations, and in Cork, well, it's all COVID, so we're all working from home. But anyway, but when we weren't, you'd wander into town in Cork, 15 minutes in the car. You're giving out if the traffic is really bad, which just means you're an extra 5 minutes. The journey takes 5 minutes longer. In Dublin, of course, traffic is a different ballgame, and you're tense by the time you get there. And when it comes to the end of the day, you're tense because all you need to do is jump in a car and go home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. So we were doing a lot of work in Cork around the Cork brand. And the whole idea of this exercise was to figure out what was special about Cork as a place to work and a place to live, and how do you market that? How do you capture the place in a way that you can sell it to someone? And one of my conclusions about Cork, and one of the bits of feedback when we started doing our research was, people are very nice. And what they kind of meant was, it's a bit laid back. And if you're standing in a queue in a shop or something, there's a chance that the person in front of you may turn around and start chatting. Or one poor girl, a great friend of mine who very sadly isn't with us anymore, she told this lovely story where you're in the queue at the bank and the woman behind you would tap on your shoulder and ask you, where did you buy your dress? That sort of a conversation. And the more I thought about it, I'm kind of thinking, do we have a special DNA when we come from a place? And I think we actually don't, that people are the same everywhere. So maybe the point I'd put to you is, are you calm and relaxed and easy because of the place, the weather, the location? Whereas, in another location, it's all just a bit more hyper because it's busier, there's more traffic, everything's more competitive. So is it the people or is it the place and how we interact with it? What do you think?
I think you've got a good point there. It might be the population.
Yeah.
Because when I leave my town of like 3,000 people and go down the hill to LA, which has millions of people, it feels very much like the bigger, like big cities. Like it's more intense. There's more going on. The traffic's terrible. You get stopped. You can't go where you want to go. Your goals are getting interfered with. Whereas, in my tiny town, we do pretty much what we want when we want. We can go see people. Our neighbors talk to each other. We're not terribly busy. There's no work.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's just population.
Yeah, and it's just the situation and the scale, and that affects the pace of life and everything that's around it. So we're not in a big rush to do anything.
Mm.
And I know you did experience Ireland as well, because you were telling me you spent a bit of time in Doolin and in Galway, and what was the island you were talking about?
Inisheer.
Inisheer, okay.
Yeah, I went to Inisheer.
Yeah. So you experienced,
there.
So you experienced a little bit of what that was like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in a funny way, not Cork City, but I suppose West Cork would be very much like kind of Galway and that kind of a feeling as well. I think as well, when you live by the sea and you live close to the land, lots of cows and all of that kind of thing, I think it does earth you in a particular way, and it does change how you are as a person.
Yeah. It's a different pace, and the priorities are different. And I like places like that. I think I would really like Cork.
Yeah.
I need to get out there.
Definitely. You're invited, Jen.
Okay.
So living in a desert for 10 years, what the hell was that like?
It was hot.
Yeah.
It was a great place to grow up. There's it was Tempe was a kind of a small community at the time. It was a suburb of Phoenix, and it's a college town. Arizona State University is right there. So just a lot of families with kids, and I was a kid at the time, so I was surrounded by fun things to do. Our backyard, we had lots of space. We had a pool that you could take a dip and cool off. And there was a lot of cool nature out there too. The nature in the desert is really different. The birds are different, and we had lizards everywhere. On our fences and just throughout the yard, there were lizards everywhere. And I was a masterful lizard catcher.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I would notice things about them too, like differences in coloration, and how I was curious. How do these lizards spend their time, and where do they go after I catch them and let them go? So I was a bit of a nerd.
Are you still a nerd, or has all the nerdiness left you?
Oh, I'm still a nerd.
Are
Yeah,
you?
still very much into birds. In fact, my day job, I work with the San Diego Audubon Society, and so I'm definitely very involved in bird watching and conservation, and connecting people with nature. And I think even my songs do that too. If you look, you'll find a bird in almost every song I've written. And if not a bird, a landscape, or something from nature.
Okay. And tell me, growing up, was there music in the house?
Not so much. It wasn't something that my parents really reached for when they were looking for something to fill the space. And I don't really recall them ever listening to the radio except for like news. My mom would put on records. They had a small collection of records. And so when my mom was cleaning house, she would put on a record. So I would hear, let's see, she had a John Denver's Greatest Hits. She had Simon and Garfunkel. She had one album by them. She had one Beatles album. She had a Peter, Paul and Mary. She was really into sort of the folk hootenanny music. So Chad Mitchell Trio, Kingston Trio, stuff like that. And we'd listen to that while she was cleaning. And so, the vacuum cleaner running, and the music in the background.
And was that registering with you in any way, or was that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool.
Oh yeah. And the music that I really love, Paul Simon's music. I've always loved Paul Simon. I've always loved Simon and Garfunkel and vocal harmonies. I really like rich harmonies. And I like a scaled back instrumentation as well. So not so much the, drums and bass and guitars and keyboard and background vocals and a full band kind of thing. I'm definitely much more into a single guitar, maybe two guitars. If there's a drum, just like a cajon, or nothing, not like a whole trap set or anything like that. That's definitely carried through.
I'm just after spotting your little buddy behind you.
Oh, yes, I have a little dog behind me. Yeah, that's Buzzy.
Hi, Buzzy.
Yeah, she's napping.
Yeah, because I've got a guy next to me who isn't a million miles different to him. His name is Bert.
Oh.
Yeah. And at this stage, with lockdown and everything, I think pretty much every single client has met Bert at some point. Well, maybe not met him, but absolutely heard him, because he's got, he doesn't like delivery men a whole pile. So if anyone comes, within 50 yards of the house,
yes.
Absolutely. He tears the house down. And you could be in the middle of important meetings, or, we do a lot of social media training and brand workshops and all that kind of thing. Bert will absolutely make an appearance. But
yeah, Buzzy gets into it too. Sometimes she joins me in my Zoom meetings. Not so much at concerts, because if I do an online concert, I usually have my guitar in my lap. And there's no room for dog and guitar. But she'll jump in.
So I understand that your first adventures when it comes to music was choir singing. Is that right?
Yeah. I've been in choirs, all through my school life. It was something that I guess I was always good enough at it that it was encouraged. Could carry a tune. I was good at harmony. And so, they were always happy to have someone who could read music and sing in that alto part,
And that's something you have in common with your good German buddy, Martin Pretorius, who was on the podcast a number of episodes ago. Because he was in a choir as well, wasn't he, with the family?
I guess so, yeah. I think, he did a lot of church singing and choir singing, and had a good appreciation of that. Yeah, we do share that. I've always enjoyed singing choral music. Bach is a favorite of mine. Yeah, I also like jazz, vocal jazz.
Okay.
And I was in a jazz group called Sugar House Voices for, I think, probably about 20 years. We sang together. And we did a little bit of touring. We went up, did some fun things in the Midwest and like around Chicago, Detroit. That was really, really cool. Just four singers. And the thing is, when you have so few people singing, it's very important that everybody know their part well, be really confident in it. And that if someone isn't confident, then you can just like, you know, shift gears really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, he's not singing that note. I'll pick it up. And so it was just wonderful being a part of a chord with that group of people. And yeah, very, very good friends.
So tell me, was music just very much an enjoyable hobby for you growing up, was it?
Yeah, I think so. It was a hobby, and it was also something that I felt like I really wanted to be doing professionally, but I didn't really have any idea how. And I didn't know exactly, what sort of music I really wanted to be doing. So all through school, all through doing choirs and, being in little jazz bands and in my choral groups and such, there was just always this yearning that was taking place there. And I was feeling this yearning, wanting to do more. And it wasn't always shared among all the people in the
Okay.
group. So like you're in a choir of 30 people. For some of those people, it is just a hobby. And for some of those people, it's not. And, the ones that are hobbyists aren't interested in picking up and taking the thing on tour. Plus taking 30 people on tour is hard.
Of course, yeah.
It's much easier to do with just one or two people. So it took me a very long time to realize that music was something that I could generate on my own, and that I could learn an instrument that I could accompany myself with. I always played the piano, and they're really heavy. So
Yeah.
I could never really drag that around with me, even though it is my first instrument.
That's being a bit lazy, Jen, isn't it?
A bit lazy?
Yeah, that
Yes,
you're
I'm
not, that you don't
lazy.
drag your
Yeah,
piano everywhere.
should have figured that one out. But guitars are light, and I wasn't a great guitarist. I still am not a great guitarist, but I can play enough to cover what needs to be covered. And that was fun to learn, that to realize that you don't really need all of the notes, and you don't really need to play everything to play something. And the voice and the guitar can work together to make something that's perfectly listenable, and it's a good experience if you scale it back, even a better
Yeah.
experience if you play less. So that was fun to learn. Took a while, but I got there.
Is all of this just a little bit serendipitous, I wonder? You were obviously more inclined and more passionate about music than a lot of your colleagues, your buddies in the choir and everything. If there was a Jen buddy who was just as enthusiastic, like for a Paul Simon, there was an Art Garfunkel. If you had a buddy who was just as interested at the time, maybe that would have, okay, let's do this together. But when you're kind of doing that in a solo thing and everyone else is talking about college and careers and families and all that kind of stuff, do you need that little bit of extra exposure and a little bit of, as I was saying, that serendipity and having just another person who's at the same stage at the same time, and before you know it, you're, wow, I'm all in.
Yeah. And I have found that more recently in my life. But when I was back in college and just starting my career, there were influences that were basically telling me that's not an appropriate dream. to want to find somebody to make music with and to go out and do that. It's a nice side thing, but you're never going to go anywhere with that.
Yeah.
So I struggled with that for a long time,
It's
and
probably that
ended up.
normal conversation, Jen, isn't it?
Oh, sure. Because, your parents want you to be successful. They don't want to have to take care of you for the rest of your life. They want you to leave the house. Um, and well, they want you to have a self-sufficiency about you. And they didn't think that would be possible.
Yeah. Unless you come
And
from that musical family where everyone gets it and it's just part of the fabric of growing up.
yeah,
But if that's not part of your life and it's not part of their lives, the only path they can really relate to is that, well, get a good job, Jen.
yeah, yeah. And what's so ironic about it is now, um, and in the past 10 years or so, where music has been a much bigger part of how I make my living. My dad, I think, is my biggest fan, and at one point I thought, oh, he's not going to support this. He doesn't want me to do this. He wants me to go into science. He wants me to maybe do something with that. And I always sort of felt like there was this disapproval going on. But it's come out in the past 10 years or so that he really likes what I do.
And like that, is it disapproval or is it just concern?
Yeah, it was never disapproval.
Yeah. And I'm guessing, taking the whole male, female, gender thing and everything. I think as a dad and having a daughter in the music industry or whatever, you will be probably an extra level of concern, definitely. And of course, all of the things we hear and everything.
Yeah, it's not always a safe space.
Yeah. I'm absolutely sure it isn't. So, like with the work that we do, and in particular in our team Infusion, when you're recruiting people, you always want them to be passionate about this thing that they're doing. And obviously you did college and you took some really interesting jobs along the way. Were you passionate about them, or were you really working really hard to convince something that this is really what I want? Did you have to do a lot of faking it? And did people cop on, Jen, you're really good at what you do, but I don't think this is really where your heart is?
Well, I was never into the sort of the manufacturing science stuff that I did. I worked for a company that did high technology ceramics, things like oxygen sensors for your car or parts for your phone, parts for the space shuttle. It's really cool stuff. But for me, it was just like working with different colors of dirt and making mud and forming it into shapes and then cooking it. They would hate that. They would hate to hear me say that. But I had no passion for it. It was a job. It was something to do.
Did that kill you?
Did that kill me?
Yeah.
Well, I still did things on the side. I wasn't working all the time, but the other things I was doing took away from me being a good worker, for sure.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Like I got involved in musical theater, and I'd go out and we'd do a show, and then after the show we'd go out to the pancake house and drink coffee all night, and then I'd go home and I would sleep in, wouldn't get up for work. There was one period of time I didn't show up for work for 2 weeks.
Oh, I wonder where Jen is today.
Yeah. And I should have lost that job. I didn't, but I should have lost it. And
did they know what you were doing?
I'd done a show. I'd done a play, and I was done with the play closed, and I didn't have another play to start up right away, and I was really depressed. So. I mean, I probably wasn't in the best mental shape at the time. And I wasn't doing other things really. I just wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a high, isn't there, when you're involved in any event like that? And I'm sure at the end of it, you're just going on pure adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
And when the thing finishes, you just collapse, don't you? You've expended energy that you didn't even have in the first place.
Yeah. Well, and you get it with music shows too.
Yeah.
You finish the show and then the next day you just kind of want to like chill, and not have to do anything the next day.
Yeah.
And then, you pick up and you go on and do the next show. Performing takes a lot out of you. And it's, for me, performance is really important. It's a part of who I am. It's part of what I want to be doing. Always. And that period of time when I wasn't sure what the next performance was going to be, it was hard, because that was what was getting me through the day to day. It wasn't the work. It wasn't, the steady job. It was the creative work.
Yeah, because you are on the Win Happy podcast, and that's all about chiseling out that life for yourself that has you following your dreams. And maybe that sounds very, up in the air, whatever, following your dreams. In a way, it's creating oxygen for yourself.
Yeah.
From the things you need to be doing, and not doing the opposite, which is killing yourself by things that you have no interest in. And, it's not a rehearsal.
Right.
we are here for one dance or whatever. And it's really important that you try and figure that out as quickly as possible. So how did your figuring out go?
Well, I did figure it out, I think. I feel like I'm in a much better place now. And part of it is being able to do the music the way I want to, and having the skill to be able to create what I want to create. And that wasn't something I always had. Back when I was doing choirs and back when I was in musical theater, all of that requires a lot of people to make it happen.
Yeah.
You can't, as a solo performer, put on a musical or a choir. So all of the music I was doing was dependent upon others. And it wasn't until I started to write my own songs and learn how to perform them that was when I really started to pick up some momentum, I think. And it's when my life sort of opened up into something new and something that I think is better and more authentic to who I am.
When would that have been,
I was
Jen?
35. I didn't really start writing or playing on my own until I was in my 30s. And sometimes I'm like, wow, wouldn't it have been nice if I knew this when I was 19? But I don't think I would have been ready for it, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe it all came in its own good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you only get one shot. So, the whole what could have been conversation it's not really very valid because you can't go back. You can't do it again. There is no alternative universe where you did it a different way. There may be, maybe, but I'm not going to experience that. So my life is my life and I'm doing what I want with it.
That sounds pretty cool. In terms of a song of yours that would kind of capture that early period where Jen is thinking, I kind of have this now. Yeah, I'm on a path. I'm starting to figure out, I've created some music. I know how to play it. I'm happy to put this out into the world. Would you have a song for me that would represent that time? Could you give me one of your early songs?
Yeah. On my first album, it's called Eye of the Storm. It's the title track from that. It's called Eye of the Storm. And it's definitely a song about asking myself questions about what I have to do, what's going to take you to the next level. And the song suggests that you've got to be the center of your own universe if you're going to, make a big bang. And so that song was very important for me in my music life of breaking out and realizing some things.
Yeah. Could be a good theme for the podcast, couldn't it? Because you are the eye of your own storm, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
In so many respects. I like that idea.
Yeah.
What does it take to believe that my image is not me, and there's more of me to see for those who look? What does it take to step out? Should I roar? Should I shout and demand I set my own route for my journey? I'm gonna point my boat in the way I wanna go. I'm gonna pick up the oars and row into the eye of the storm, into the center of the universe, into the heart of the world, into the common thread that is woven through the tapestry, into the dawn that is breaking into the light. What does it take for me to learn that I'm the one that's yearning, and the rubber's mine to burn and no one else's? What does it take for me to see I am absolutely free, and the seas will part for me if I ask them? I'm gonna point my boat in the way I wanna go. I'm gonna pick up the oars and roll into the eye of the storm, into the center of the universe, into the heart of the world, into the common thread that is woven through the tapestry, into the dawn that is breaking into the light. The dawn is breaking. The dawn is breaking. I am the eye of the storm. I am the center of the universe. I am the heart of the world. I am the common thread that is woven through the tapestry. I am the dawn that is breaking. I am the light. The dawn is breaking. I am the light. The dawn is breaking. I am the light. The dawn is breaking. I am the light.
And the path from that point to shifting towards music, starting to go on tour, how did all that develop?
Well, I had released my first album and was working on my second one. And some things were changing at the place where I was working at the time. At that point, I moved into the zookeeping field, believe it or not.
I'm really seeing a very, very direct line between one job and the next one. Yeah. How did that happen?
Just right place, right time.
Okay.
Was looking to get away from the traditional sciences and maybe get closer to something that felt like life and, living creatures. That is life. Yeah. And it was a zoo that specialized in birds. And I've always loved birds. It's just a big part of who I am. So it was nice to be there and learn how to take care of them. How to use them in education programs. The birds that we had in our collection, they were all birds of prey that had been injured at some point in their lives and couldn't go back out into the nature. And so the government here allows you to have permits to have those birds if you take them to schools and talk to kids about birds, you know. So that's what I did. I was the cool girl with the owl on my arm, you know, telling kids about owls and how cool they are. Anyway, I'd released some albums, or released one, was releasing my second one, and the music was getting bigger in my life. I was doing more of it. I actually integrated the music into the bird programs I was doing. I wrote a whole bunch of songs about the ecology of birds of prey and, you know, would sing those to fourth graders all over the state. And then that job abruptly ended. I wasn't exactly fired. I wouldn't call it that. Because what I did was very unique and there weren't other people who could really step up and do it. But the funding was such that they just couldn't continue doing it that way. So I was left without a job, and it was a crossroads. You know, at that point I said to myself, okay, do I go to the zoo and look for a job at the zoo? Or do I do something completely different? And at that time, a boy that I had dated, he had moved out to California to take a job. And he had been asking me to come join him. And I had been saying, oh, no, I don't think I can. No, I don't think I can. And finally I said, okay, yeah, let's do this. My thought was that California might be a better place for, you know, finding musical work. And it might be a real opportunity for me to redefine myself and kind of frame myself as somebody new and different. And so that's when Jen Hajj, the folk singer, was born.
So that was the reinvention of you, really, the latest version.
Yeah. And so immediately after moving there, I started setting up my first solo tour and created a tour going up the whole coast of the US. I started in San Diego and went all my way up to Canada, actually. I did a couple shows in Nelson, British Columbia, and then back down through Salt Lake City, where I'd lived for a long time, and then back through Nevada and back into Southern California. It was epic. I was gone for like a whole month, and it was the biggest thing I'd ever done, music wise. And I pulled it off. You know, it was great. It was, and so did a couple more recordings. I've got 5 CDs out now. And all of this sort of built towards going international and starting to look at opportunities in just abroad. And I had the opportunity to go to Ireland for a songwriter retreat, which I jumped on. And that, again, was another redefining moment because I met a lot of people there who have continued to be my dearest friends and my songwriting partners and just my best friends in music, really. And
Jen, how do people discover Ireland in that way? Is that just purely accidental, or does it have a good reputation? Or is it just a particular festival that someone heard about? Or like, would Ireland have been on your radar before that?
It hadn't, except that maybe I might have some Irish heritage. But the songwriter retreat that I signed up for was one that was run by Brett Perkins, who used to live in California. He moved to Europe and has been there for I don't know how long. But he started doing these retreats in just different places all over Europe. And he was advertising his retreats on Sonic Bids. And when I was first trying to find tour destinations, I was on Sonic Bids a lot. I was signing up on Sonic Bids to, do anything I possibly could. So I signed up for his retreats several times through Sonic Bids, hoping that I would be the big winner who got the free retreat. I never did get the free retreat.
It sounded like a marketing trick, but anyway.
Yeah, it totally was. but just the time and place when I finally did decide to go, because I applied many times, but there was one application where it was compelling enough. And there were all these different choices of where I could go. And I think that Brett wanted me to go to one of the California retreats, I think. But I had no interest in doing a retreat in California. If I was going to do this, I was going to do a European retreat. And the only city that didn't scare me on the list was the Inisheer retreat. And just Ireland just sounded more just easier than maybe going to Copenhagen or Sweden. Those were big, scary places that I wasn't sure I wanted to try. Ireland felt closer to what I already knew.
Yeah. And is that just a case of confidence in yourself at that stage and your repertoire and everything?
Mm-hmm, yeah. And I've never been good with languages. So I think also the fact that English is spoken, it was important to me. It was less scary than going to France, where, I wasn't sure that I would, be able to communicate with people. I felt like I probably would be able to find people to communicate with in Ireland.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. Although the Irish have their own language, so there are places in Ireland I can go where I won't understand anything.
Yeah. Well, there's places in Ireland where I go to, and sometimes, some of those big, thick kind of country accents, you just won't understand them. Would you have a song for me from that time?
Yeah. I have a lot of songs that I wrote on that retreat, that first retreat. I actually wrote 9 songs on that retreat. Well, it was a co-writing retreat. So every day you get paired with someone to write with. It was the first time I'd ever done anything like that before. And because there were a small number of people on the retreat, I realized that if I played my cards right, I could write with everyone on that retreat. And I did. And so I got 7 songs out of the retreat itself. And then I wrote 2 on my own also while I was there. So, I think that's the most productive week of songwriting I've ever done before or since.
And is there a song from that time that, kind of nails it for you, if you know what I mean?
Of those songs that I wrote, only one of them has been recorded.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's Be Gentle With My Heart, which is a duet. That I do that with, I wrote it with Martin Pretorius. And over the pandemic, we did some recording transatlantically. And we released a few songs. So that song actually has received a little bit of airplay in Ireland.
Yeah.
Out of that. So I'm really proud of that one.
Why did that one get recorded? Why did that one stand out above everything? Or is that just good odds, Jen? When you're punching it out at that rate, that it's nearly like a production line.
All of those songs are really special to me. And I've just felt like I need to treat them in a special way. I can't just do just the normal, everyday, Jen Hajj treatment of these songs. And I haven't quite yet figured out what that looks like. But I know that they need to be set apart from the other things I do. And I always wanted, I wanted to save Be Gentle With My Heart for later anyway, because I knew that Martin and I would do that one together, and that we would record that. And we have done that. So that one, check it off the list.
Won't you stay with me and lay down my side. Won't you slow the chatter of my troubled mind? Whisper in my ear, it will be alright. And when you hold me close, be gentle with my heart. My feet are tired from walking. The roads are cold and dark. Won't you ease my burden? For I have traveled far. Won't you shelter me from the noise of passing time? And when you hold me close, be gentle with my heart. When you hold me close, be gentle with my heart.
I do have some of these songs. I have like scratch recordings of them on my SoundCloud, and so they're out there in the world, but they're not. They don't have the production value that I want for them. These are, if songs are children, these are my favorite kids. They need to go to the best school.
Yeah. And do you have a plan for them? Or, is there a definite plan, or are you just going to let them bubble away there for a while, or how are you going to send them off into the wilds?
I don't know, because it's been years now. It's been like over 5 years since they were written. I really should do something with them.
Do you go back to them yourself? Do you ever listen to them?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
And I perform them.
Okay.
I do
okay.
them. I do them in life.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe I might be just a little bit scared to do them, because I have so much affection for them and for the people that I wrote them with. And I want to do right by them.
Are you protecting them a little bit too much?
Maybe too much. maybe just too much.
And the other artists that were at that retreat, have you seen, their music popping up in different areas with all of those? Or did it have the same impact on them? Are they just as protective as you were?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I know it was a very special retreat for me. And I know that there were some things that happened there that made us all really bond together, more so than you might at a regular retreat. It's just because we were a small group, because we all saw each other all around the same table, and it was very easy to interact with everyone. The boat ride over was just awful. We all thought we were going to die. So I think that we also had this sort of like, oh, wow, we've really been through something together.
Yeah, we nearly died.
And yeah, I'm still, connected to most of them. Some of them, they pop in and out. And, they're all doing amazing music things and amazing things in life, outside of this. Yeah, they're all out there doing stuff.
We should get them. We should do a little reunion on the Win Happy podcast and just
Yes,
get them to.
I would welcome that.
Yeah, exactly. You can organize it, Jen. I'll hit the record button. It's a funny word as well, isn't it? That idea of having a retreat and used in that context. It's normally, I suppose, in a way, retreats have that kind of that religious overtone or whatever, don't they? Normal retreats are. And like even the idea of retreating, you're kind of pulling back from all your other things. Whereas with a musical retreat, you're kind of just putting it out there, aren't you?
Yeah, well, but you are also, you're away from your regular life.
Yeah.
And so I was very far away from my regular life.
You sure were.
And trying something new that I'd never tried before in a place I'd never been, and doing it pretty much by myself, which is also new. I think most of the times I traveled before then, I was with somebody, and so this was really my first international travel experience where I was on my own, and you learn things about yourself. And it's a whole different frame, different angle than regular life. And then you go back to your regular life, and then you get sucked into that.
Yeah. So the Jen who hopped on a plane to go home, was that a different Jen in some ways?
Totally, yes. Oh my God, yes. More confident, more driven, more interested in nurturing music relationships, and sharing that with someone. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, I started out being part of like this group collective of people that couldn't move together, and then went to just being a solo entity that was very, lean and capable of doing whatever I wanted. And then I came back to really craving doing this with others and creating the means to do that. And I still struggle with that, but I fully plan to get back with Martin and to perform as Transatlantic Trails wherever they'll listen, That's on the plan. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen.
Yeah, because obviously you came back with a nice clear direction. Musical career was ramming into gear. You were going to go for it, and the world had other ideas.
Yeah. Well, and there are other ways to do it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think I've really learned from the pandemic is that there are a lot of paths to happiness, and I can be really happy with what I'm doing right now, even though it's not what I planned, and even though it's difficult to get the kind of traction I hoped I had, it's still worth the journey. And I'm happier now than I've been in a long time. I've taken a lot of pressure off myself, and I'm allowed to be who I am, as a songwriter and as a person. And I like exploring who that is.
When you say I took a lot of pressure off myself, what do you mean?
When you're trying to get gigs, you're trying to get in front of people, you're trying to get listeners, clicks, or whatever it is, and it's not happening. You don't always know why it's not happening. But it doesn't feel good. You feel like you have to have that. Oh gosh, I need to be doing this. I need people to see me and buy my stuff or whatever. Now it's more for me and others who have an interest.
Yeah.
Rather than for always trying to do something that maybe they'll listen to this. Maybe they'll like this. What if I change this? What if I color my hair? What if I, blah, 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 blah. That's all it is. It's better when it just comes from your heart. It's real. It's true. And it has an organic reach.
Yeah, it's kind of bare bones, really, isn't it? Just stripping everything way back.
Yeah. And so I might not be getting people listening to me from all over the world, and I might not be making a lot of money in streaming, but it's still good.
And it's probably closer to you and it's more real, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everything has oodles of feeling behind it.
Yeah. So is there a bit of trepidation with things hopefully opening up now, 2022 and all that kind of thing? A lot of us have enjoyed a little bit of a sabbatical. For some people, it was the total opposite, of course. They had to go into super drive. But for you, that getting back into that goalpost time when you are looking at clicks and you have to get bookings and you're trying to make sales and all that kind of thing, is that kind of, oh my God, are you nervous about that? Or would you take another pandemic year?
I don't really like the pandemic,
Yeah.
but I also really didn't like the scrambling for the competitiveness. And I think that from this point forward, I can do what I want to do. I can choose the things that I want to do. I can ask for the things that I want. The answer may be no, but it might be yes. And I'm happy with that. I think my approach in the future is going to be a little more relaxed because of the pandemic. It kind of taught me that I can do that.
Yeah, everyone was given permission, weren't they, in a funny sort of a way?
Mm-hmm.
I think you've nearly been describing it, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway, Jen. What's happiness to you?
What's happiness?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. It's freedom. Like a feeling of no boundaries, and that you're confident in that, and that you've got the needs covered. It's like this place of no needs and no, it's just free. And that can come from a lot of different things. You can get happiness from just working and paying your bills. But it's like when I'm playing music, I'm not really thinking about anything else except that. And the only job I have is to make it sound good, and to bring an experience to somebody and bring lyrics to somebody, just really bring them in to that same feeling. Cool. So they can feel it too.
Yeah.
I think that's happiness for me.
And when I talk about winning happy, the thing I kind of say to people is that you might love playing football, but if you kick ball in the park all day and all night and there were no goalposts, there would be very little point. It would get boring fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And there are moments in a match where in Ireland it would be soccer or Gaelic even. But there's moments where you put the ball in the back of the net and it's elation, you're punching your fist. Hey, this is excellent. I've got my goal. So what would winning look like for you? Winning happy, or do you have kind of some goals yourself going forward?
Yeah. I want to be with the people that make me feel that way the most, and yeah, I think that's really important to surround yourself with people who can help you and celebrate that happiness with you. You got to have your team, right?
You do. You need your team.
Yeah. And I know also that it comes from me, that if I don't bring something to it, it's not going to get there.
Yeah.
It requires effort and it requires your best game.
But you have to be in a position as well to deliver that best game, don't you? In the right frame of mind and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've got 2 more questions for you. The first one is a whopper. This is
okay.
It's a big, big one, and I hope you're ready for it.
All right.
What was your best day?
My best day?
Yeah, ever.
My best day ever. Oh, geez. Wow. Hmm. That's a really that's what an interesting question.
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is so tricky because I've had a lot of really good days, and I okay, this may be one of my best days. Um, I was living in Utah, and I was just getting started with my music stuff. And a friend of mine who is a touring or was a touring singer-songwriter, he's not really doing it anymore, but he came out to Salt Lake City to play a show that I had set up for him. And we took the morning and we went to this hot spring that was up in the mountains, and you had to hike in. It ended up being like a 10-mile hike. It was hard. But we went and we spent some time soaking in the hot water, and having some really good conversations. And then we came back and we did this show. And he had asked me to play the piano in the show. And we had this little band that we pulled together for it. They were so good. And it was so tight. The whole show was just, it felt brilliant from beginning to end. And there were surprises in it, like the cellist that we got. We had no idea that he was as good as he was. This guy, his name is Sam Rundleson. Yeah, he like had pedals on his cello, like an electric guitar would, and it was just totally tore it up, and just the music was just so uplifting and so beautiful, and everybody was so moved by it. And at the end, we knew we had done something just really special. That was a special day.
There was magic really in the air that day.
It was magical. Yeah.
Wow. That sounded like a pretty good day, Jen.
Yeah.
So my very last question for you.
Okay.
Could you pick a song for me of yours that we'll close off the show with? And you might tell me what the song is and why you've chosen it.
Okay. I think I'll have to, it's called Nap Time. And I like it so much that I've recorded it twice. So this is the one that's off the Shelter Songs album. That's the version that I'd want you to do. And Nap Time is one of the first songs that I wrote. It was really early on. And I knew I wanted to write songs and I didn't know how to do it. And because I'm sort of a school person, I thought, well, okay, I'll go to a class and I'll learn how to write a song. So I signed up for a songwriting class with Cozy Sheridan, who's a really fantastic artist out here. She lived in Moab, Utah for a number of years, and just was big on the folk scene, and she's still big on the folk scene. She's amazing. She did this songwriting workshop, and so I went. And it was really funny because I got in there. I was the first person in there, and she was sitting on the floor, and there were no chairs, there were no tables or anything. It was just Cozy sitting on a yoga mat on the floor. And she said, "Grab a yoga mat and come and find a place, sit down." And everybody showed up. We're all sitting on our yoga mats, and she had us all lie down on the floor. And took us through a meditation exercise. And this was so not what I was expecting. I was like, this is writing a song? Okay, I'm going to just trust you because you know what you're doing. You're a songwriter. And that's what I want to be. So I'm going to meditate with you. And she took us through this beautiful little meditation where you close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, and you're walking on this path in the woods, and it's very still and quiet, and you can hear the leaves underneath your feet as you walk, and you're going down this path, and at the end of the pathway is this beautiful tree. And you get closer to the tree and you realize that the tree has a door in it. And then you go and you open the door and you notice this stairway that goes down, 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 deep to like the belly of the tree. And then you go down those stairs and you come to the bottom, and in that space is the happiest place you've ever been. And then she left us there. And we, after maybe, 5 minutes of just being there, she then said, take out your notebooks, write down everything you can remember from this place. Remember, what did you see? What did you smell? What did you hear? What was there? Who was there with you? And, just tell us about that. And the song Nap Time just billowed out of that. I almost wrote it down word for word, didn't make any changes to it. And it took me a while to find a tune for it and actually get it under my fingers. But eventually it is maybe my favorite song that I've ever done.
Wow.
Because it came out of such a real experience. It expresses love in the way that I know how to express it.
And tell me about the two versions.
The first one was my first try. It was on my first album. I knew it had to be on my first album because it was really my first song. But the first version, I think I tried too hard. So the second version is more relaxed, and it allows the song to be the song. So I like it a little better.
Yeah. So the second version was Jen Hajj, who discovered herself, fully. You became the singer-songwriter in version number 2, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the second version is like on my 4th album. So I've learned a bit between the two. Yeah. And that 4th album is cool. I like it. The cover art is the tree from my story.
You're a good storyteller, Jen.
Thank you.
You had me going. I'm like, oh my God. And and what I was thinking, the listeners are going to absolutely love this moment. It'll be, one of the Win Happy classic moments. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
How can people follow you? You're on all the social media bits and pieces.
Yeah. I'm on Facebook, either Jen Hajj, my personal page, or Jen Hajj Music, my music page. I do a lot more on Jen Hajj, honestly. And I'm on Instagram too. Instagram, I tend to do more of my photographic stuff. I do a lot of different kinds of art in addition to songwriting. And I even have a TikTok page.
Oh no, you didn't do that, did you?
I do TikTok. But I've started talking about songwriting on my TikTok. So
you found a nice way of bringing them all together.
Yeah, and my handle on that is Jen the Bird Nerd.
Okay. Yeah. And for the listener, because when I was chatting to Martin, I don't know how many times he said your name, and I'm like, okay, I have no idea on this earth how to spell it, but it's
H-A-J-J, yes. Yeah.
So it's H-A-J-J.
Yes.
Perfect. Where does that surname come from?
That's Arabic. Yeah. There was a period of my history when I was married, and I kept the name because it's cooler than my original name was.
What was your original name?
My last name was Richardson, which I always had to spell for people, and I never really liked it. I still have to spell Hajj because people don't know how to spell that either.
Oh, of course they don't. Not a
It's
chance.
It's a little cooler. And how many times do you get 3 J's in your name? I mean, no one else has 3 J's.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
I've had a
coming.
really good time with you today.
Yeah, me too. You were so lovely. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you so much, Greg.
And the red carpet welcome is waiting for you in Cork when you decide to come here. Exactly.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, but I'm going to warn you that the weather isn't too hectic. But despite that, there's a good chance you won't want to leave. So I'm just putting that out there.
I don't mind that.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much. Take it easy.
All right.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
I love this chair. It's shaped like me, it's soft and squishy and tall. And I sink into the cushions and I am small again. A light from the window shines upon my face, and I'm warm and sleepy in its light. The house is still, not a sound except the ticking of a clock somewhere. A wind chime on the breeze calls to a flock of sheep. On the bay a lobster boat is turning circles, pulling tonight's dinner from the sea. In the kitchen I hear her kneading dough in her strong fingers. Flour dusts her cheeks and a tear lingers there. She is thinking of her mother who died some time ago. Baking causes memories to rise. I'm not alone. On soft and silent paws a stranger creeps in, purring loudly as he leaps into my lap. He curls up on my chest and blows my face with kitten breath, and I fall asleep. I fall asleep and dream about love.
Thank you for listening to the Win Happy podcast, which has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free to send me an email at greg@fusion.ie. So until next time, take it easy.